Live from Johannesburg, this is Tonight with Jane Dutton. You're in a foreign country, passport taken away, no phone, no leave days and no pay. Then long working hours, beatings and sexual harassment. These are the lives many African domestic workers suffer in the Middle East. And coming up on Checkpoint, the nightmare of the missing loved ones. Begging to be saved from slavery and abuse. These are workers in Lebanon and the Arabian Gulf. Many of them are never given any time off. They suffer burns, stabbings and rape by their employers. It's so bad, at least 10,000 girls flee from Saudi Arabia every year. We have on this show a victim who managed to escape. Do recruitment agencies know about these human rights abuses when sending them over? What sort of abuses do we see here in South Africa? And how do we compare when it comes to treating foreign domestic workers? Those are my questions. What are yours? You can call us on 011-759-6340. I'd like to hear from you. You can also use the hashtag Tonight with Jane Dutton. But first, Shahan is standing by with the news.
Thanks, Jane. Appreciate it. These are our top stories, and this, of course, is the lead. The resignation of Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba. President Cyril Ramaphosa has been under pressure to fire the embattled politician after the public protector recommended action be taken against him for lying under oath about the Fireblade terminal saga. Gigaba says he's stepping down for the sake of the country and the ANC. Several opposition parties, including the DA, are welcoming the resignation.
I think what we should never forget is that this is a minister who did profound damage to state-owned enterprises, did profound damage to our tourism industry, which limited people's ability to create work. He certainly damaged our economy by those decisions. And then the Fireblade decision at the end of it demonstrated without doubt that this is an individual who cannot be trusted, who's willing to lie before a court of law, and the courts have found that. This is the right step in eradicating a system of corruption that has ultimately become so pervasive in the ANC. So we welcome his resignation.
The ANC's head of the presidency, Zizi Kodwa, is denying former Public Enterprises Minister Barbara Hogan's allegations about the party's influence at state-owned enterprises. Hogan told the state capture inquiry the ANC had a say on the selection of CEOs and board members at parastatals. She testified that the party's National Working Committee instructed her regarding the appointment of Siyabonga Gama as Transnet CEO. Kodwa says the country should not conduct a public trial on the basis of one submission.
The question we always make, let's not run a public trial on the basis of one submission, which in itself is not cross-examined. There have been some twists and turns on the basis of people being cross-examined, and the new revelations have come. And I think let's not make instant judgment on the basis of a witness testimony to the commission.
And in good news for the Fourth Estate, the media has been granted access to the interviews for the position of National Director of Public Prosecutions. The application was brought by lobby group Right to Know. The judge says an open and transparent process must be followed.
Having decided that an inclusive process should be followed, that process should be open and transparent. The public cannot be expected to have confidence in the independence and the fitness and propriety of the candidate who is selected without any information about the interviews of the shortlisted candidates being made available. It is of utmost importance that confidence in the office of the NDPP be restored. To this end, an open and transparent process which will provide the public with information regarding the interviews must be followed. For these reasons, I am of the view that the application must succeed. I am satisfied that the limitations proposed by the applicant in its notice of motion strike an appropriate balance between the rights of the public in terms of sections 16(1)(a) and (b) of the Constitution and the purpose being pursued by the President.
There'll be more news at 9. I'm back at 10 with NewsHour. For now, it's back to Jane.
I don't think there is a human rights in this world. No way. Maybe in Europe, but not in the Middle East. I will not stop this business because I'm helping myself and I'm helping the other people.
That's a Lebanese recruitment agent for domestic workers, Mahmoud Damout, talking on camera. The Maid in Hell documentary is a horrific account of the torture workers experience when working in Lebanon and the Arabian Gulf. They're cut off from the outside world, beaten, sexually abused and exploited. Exploitation is also rampant here in South Africa. So let's discuss this problem that affects hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. Joining me in the studio, we have the Zimbabwe Communist Party's Bongani Mkwanaza and the Domestic Service Workers Union's Eunice Tlatla. Welcome to both of you. What is the situation as far as workers are concerned in Zimbabwe? And tell us the stories that you hear.
Well, most of our workers, as you know, would have migrated now and in South Africa, so to speak. We do get reports of exploitation by employers of these domestic workers who are migrants here in South Africa. So while the exploitation is not is not as violent as we have seen here, which is quite horrendous, the exploitation does exist.
And tell us more about the exploitation. Does it come in the form of hours worked or sort of mental abuse, or how's it carried out?
Now, you'd realize that most of the migrant workers, and many are undocumented. Now, they are an easy pick for exploitation. It's easy to get away with it. One would understand that domestic work is kind of an invisible sort of work which happens in people's private homes, and is very hard to monitor and inspect. While legislation has been there now that helps these domestic workers, some of them cannot have access to it because of fear, possibly that if they try to formalize, they might be caught out because they do not have documentation, for instance.
All right. Eunice, when we tried to call you a little earlier today, I believe you were in a hearing about some sort of abuse that was committed. Tell us what's going down, what sort of things you hear on a daily basis.
On a daily basis about the migrant workers, or South African, or just all domestic workers?
All domestic workers. Let's start off with migrant workers here in South Africa first, and then we can also talk about how South African workers are treated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very bad, especially on domestic workers' side. I will talk about domestic workers because that is the one that I know more than other workers. Domestic workers really are, I can say, harassed by their employers, and they are intimidated by their employers. They are ill-treated by their employers. They don't. Unfair labor practice is happening a lot in South Africa. I don't know the other countries. As my comrade has said, talk about the migrant workers from, let's say, from Zimbabwe. When they come here in South Africa, the employers they're getting a toys to play with, because they know that the migrant workers are afraid to say any word about their rights because they are from outside. Now they get a chance.
They feel that they can do what they want.
They got a chance of using them, if I can say. They're using them, saying that you are a good worker because you are doing this for me. Because the migrant workers say, yes, you can pay me, 1,000 is fine, even 800 is fine, because they are afraid to say about their rights, to talk about their rights, they think they'll be dismissed, which is not true. No one can be dismissed just because you are practicing your rights.
Okay, we'll talk about their rights a little bit more later on, but tell us more about the abuses that you come across, if you can elaborate there.
Yes, the abuse that I come from, as I said before, they work overtime. They work more hours without getting any of the overtime money. They agreed because they don't know what to do. They are ill-treating them. They work like the slaves. They work more hours from morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, even earlier than 8, until even 12 at night.
Wow.
Because if they got visitors, they just call them to come and work.
Okay, just pause there for a moment. I'm going to bring in the investigative journalist Søren Klovberg, who is on Skype for us from Denmark. And Søren, good to have you with us. We've been going through, for the last couple of days, your extraordinary documentary, and it's really hard to watch. Incredible footage that you've captured. Tell us a little bit about the experience that you had filming these abuses and what the situation is there. Is he having a bit of a sound issue there? Sorry, Søren, we're going to try and come back to you once we've corrected that sound. So, going back to these Zimbabwean workers who have been ill-treated here, what sort of recourse do they have?
Look, legislatively, the laws are there. The sectorial determination actually stipulates how a domestic worker must be employed. The worker has all rights to, like, all basic conditions of working rights. So, to start with, you must actually, when you recruit a domestic worker, offer them a formal contract of work stipulating exactly what their duties and delineators are, what work times is start time, what is above work time. Following those legislative regulations, one would then know that in a worker who works 27 hours and less has to work for a certain fee. There is a minimum wage. I think on the 17th or somewhere last in December, the Minister of Labour signed it should be 2,445 rand, that is minimum. A worker cannot work above 12 hours in a day. A worker must take a lunch break after 5 hours of work, a full 1 hour. And when they are to work that overtime, they must actually have it written and consented to. So there is various stipulations that we can go through. The worker is protected. The issue is, while they are protected, some are not aware, some are afraid, like we said, to approach authorities so that this is monitored and enforced.
Just stay with us. We're going to take a short break and we're going to continue the conversation after that. So see you soon. Don't go away.